The sky above Earth was no longer its own. Shadows stretched across the world as massive alien warships broke through the atmosphere, their hulls reflecting the dying sunlight. The Kralax had arrived. For centuries, the Galactic War had raged across the stars, consuming entire civilizations. Earth had been nothing more than an ignored backwater, a primitive world barely worth mentioning in the grand scale of cosmic conflict. But now, humanity found itself in the crosshairs of an empire that had crushed thousands of species before them. The Kralax did not see this as a battle. They saw it as a routine extermination. At first, the world stood still in disbelief. Cities fell silent as people gazed up at the sky, watching in horror as the alien fleet spread out like a storm. Then, without warning, the bombardments began. Blinding beams of energy lanced down from the sky, reducing skyscrapers to molten ruins in seconds. Explosions erupted across continents. Military bases vanished in fiery bursts before their soldiers could even scramble to respond. The world's greatest defenses were shattered in mere hours. The invasion had begun. General Ethan Cole stood inside a hidden command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, his face illuminated by the flickering light of holographic screens. Reports poured in. New York was burning. London was under siege. Entire countries had gone dark. It wasn't just an invasion. It was annihilation. The Kralax weren't just conquering. They were erasing everything in their path. Yet, something was wrong. If this was just another extermination, why had the Kralax sent only their machines? Giant mechanical walkers stomped through the streets, drones patrolled the skies, and towering warships blotted out the sun. But the Kralax themselves, their warriors, their leaders, were nowhere to be seen. "They think we're too weak to fight back," Cole muttered, gripping the edge of the console. "They're not even bothering to send their soldiers." Beside him, Lieutenant Sarah Kane clenched her fists. "So they're underestimating us." A bitter chuckle escaped Cole. That's their first mistake. Across the world, humanity was not surrendering. Cities had fallen, but the people had not. Soldiers, civilians, hackers, and rogue scientists, everyone who could fight was picking up arms in whatever way they could. In the ruins of Paris, resistance fighters used underground tunnels to strike at the machines and vanish before they could be caught. In Tokyo, engineers hijacked Kralax drones, turning them against their masters. In the shattered remains of Los Angeles, gangs and former military units worked together, setting traps and ambushes for the invaders. The Kralax believed this would be an easy war. They didn't realize that humanity had never fought fair. But Earth was running out of time. The machines were adapting, and soon, the real Kralax forces would arrive. Cole knew that if they didn't strike now, they wouldn't get another chance. They needed a plan, something so unexpected, so reckless, that the Kralax wouldn't see it coming. As he stared at the burning cities on the screen, an idea formed in his mind. A desperate, insane, impossible idea. "They think we're weak," he said. "Let's show them how wrong they are." The first real battle for Earth did not take place in a grand military stronghold or a government command center. It happened in the ruins of what was once Chicago, where the smell of burning steel and concrete filled the air. The Kralax war machines patrolled the streets, scanning for any remaining human survivors. Their insect-like legs clanked against the shattered pavement, their glowing red optics sweeping across the wreckage. To them, this was just another conquered city, but they had not yet learned what it meant to fight humans on their own ground. In the shadows of a collapsed skyscraper, Sergeant David Rains crouched with his squad, watching the machines move through the streets. The Kralax relied on overwhelming force, their mechanical sentries programmed for efficiency. They were precise, methodical, but predictable. And predictability was a weakness. Rains adjusted his earpiece, speaking in a low voice. "Squad Alpha, in position. On my mark." Somewhere beneath the city, hidden in the labyrinth of sewers and abandoned subway tunnels, a group of civilian engineers worked frantically. They had spent the last 48 hours reprogramming a stolen Kralax drone, using nothing but salvaged tech and sheer human stubbornness. The drone's optics flickered for a moment, then turned blue. It had been rewritten, recoded to work for them. Rains exhaled. Send it up. The drone shot into the air, moving as if it were still under Kralax control. The enemy machines ignored it. They had no reason to suspect one of their own. As the drone drifted into position above the patrol, a single command was sent. Detonate. A pulse of electromagnetic energy erupted from the drone, a silent shockwave that rippled through the street. The Kralax machines shuddered, their red optics dimming as their systems crashed. In that moment of silence, before they could reboot, Rains and his squad struck. Molotovs ignited the machines in bursts of fire, grenades blasted apart their delicate joints, and sniper rounds punched through their optics. The battle lasted only minutes, but by the end, the street was littered with the burning husks of Kralax war machines. Humanity had won its first real victory. News of the attack spread like wildfire. Across the world, resistance groups adapted similar tactics. In the Amazon rainforest, guerrilla fighters lured the machines into swampy terrain where their legs sank into the mud, rendering them helpless. In Siberia, human forces used blizzards as cover, ambushing Kralax patrols and vanishing before reinforcements arrived. The Kralax, so used to overwhelming technological superiority, found themselves fighting an enemy they could not predict. An enemy that refused to fight the way they expected. And then something unexpected happened. Deep within an abandoned military bunker, a group of hackers intercepted a Kralax transmission. It was heavily encrypted, filled with alien symbols and layered security. It should have been impossible to decode, but one line of text, written in plain English, stood out among the mess of code. You are not alone. Do not trust the Kralax. The message made no sense. It had been sent from a Kralax frequency, but no human could have written it. Something was reaching out to them. Back in the hidden command center in the Rockies, General Cole stared at the intercepted message on the screen, his mind racing. Was this a trap? A deception? Or was there something the Kralax weren't telling them? The battle for Earth had only just begun, but now, a new mystery had emerged. Somewhere in the depths of space, someone was watching, and they wanted humanity to know the truth. The transmission had changed everything. General Ethan Cole stood in the dimly lit command center, his gaze fixed on the message glowing on the screen. It had been sent from a Kralax frequency, yet it contained a warning written in flawless English. It didn't match any known human transmissions, nor was it a decoded enemy order. This was something else, something unexpected. You are not alone. Do not trust the Kralax. Cole ran a hand over his face. The Kralax weren't exactly known for diplomacy. They were conquerors, exterminators. If this message wasn't a deception, then something out there wanted humanity to survive. But why? Lieutenant Sarah Kane leaned over the console, scanning the data. Sir, the transmission came from low orbit, but the source is moving. Fast. Moving where? Cole asked. Kane hesitated. Toward Earth. For a long moment, no one spoke. The command center, built into the heart of a mountain, was filled with the low hum of computer systems and the occasional static crackle of distant battles being fought across the world. Outside, humanity was waging an impossible war. Inside, they had just received proof that something bigger was at play. Cole turned to the communications officer. Can we respond? Negative, the officer replied. The encryption is unlike anything we've seen. We don't have the tech to break through. Cole exhaled sharply. Then we wait. Hours passed. The world continued to burn, but all eyes in the command center remained on the unidentified object descending toward the planet. It was small, too small to be a Kralax warship. When it finally entered Earth's atmosphere, it did not arrive with the violent force of an invasion. It came silently, slipping through the chaos, landing somewhere in the Nevada desert. Cole made his decision instantly. Prep a team. We're going to find out what the hell just landed in our backyard. The journey to the crash site was anything but easy. Kralax patrols controlled most major highways, forcing Cole's team to travel through back roads and abandoned towns, avoiding aerial scans and drone swarms. They moved quickly, knowing that if they had detected the object's descent, the Kralax likely had too. By the time they reached the site, the sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert. The object, if it could even be called that, was sleek, metallic, and shaped unlike any known spacecraft. It had no visible thrusters, no seams, no markings of any kind. As Cole and his team approached, a low hum filled the air. The structure shifted, as if responding to their presence. And then, with a soft hiss, a door melted open. Weapons were drawn in an instant. No one breathed. And then something stepped out. It was not Kralax. The figure before them was tall and slender, humanoid but clearly not human. Its skin shimmered between shades of silver and deep blue, shifting with the light. Eyes that glowed like twin stars studied them with an intelligence that sent a chill down Cole's spine. This was no frightened survivor. This was something ancient, something that had seen the rise and fall of empires. The alien raised a hand, not in attack, but in greeting. And then it spoke. "I am Valen," it said, its voice resonating through the air like an echo of something long forgotten. "And if you wish to survive, you must listen carefully. The Kralax are not your true enemy." Cole had never been one to trust easily, but as he sat across from Valen in the hastily set-up command tent, he knew this was a moment that would decide the future of humanity. Valen wasted no time. The Kralax Empire believes itself invincible, but it is blind to the forces it serves. It is a weapon, wielded by a power far older and far more dangerous than you understand. Cole narrowed his eyes. "You're telling me there's something worse than the Kralax?" Valen gave a slow, deliberate nod. "They do not conquer for themselves. They conquer because they were made to." The room was silent. Kane was the first to speak. "Made to? By who?" Valen leaned forward, his glowing gaze unblinking. "By the ones who will come next, and if humanity fights too well, if you resist beyond what they expect, then they will come. And when they do," his voice grew quiet, almost regretful, "you will not survive." Cole felt a cold weight settle in his chest. He had spent years fighting wars, but nothing had prepared him for this. Humanity had barely begun to fight back, and now they were being warned not to fight too well. Valen stood. "You have a choice. You can fall like the others, or you can prepare for what is truly coming." Cole clenched his fists. He had never backed down from a fight. He wasn't about to start now. "Then tell us what we need to do." The war on Earth had changed. Humanity was no longer just fighting for survival against the Kralax. Now they had a secret that could reshape the entire war. Valen's warning had been clear. The Kralax were only the beginning. The true enemy, the ones who had created and controlled them, had not yet arrived. If humanity fought too well, if they resisted beyond what was expected, then the true masters of the Kralax would come. And when they did, there would be no hope of survival. General Ethan Cole refused to accept that. In the underground command center, he stood before a massive holographic display of Earth, the Kralax fleet surrounding the planet like a noose tightening with every passing day. Resistance cells had sprung up across the globe, launching attacks on enemy patrols, stealing weapons, and sabotaging Kralax supply routes. But it wasn't enough. Humanity was still losing. Cole turned to Valen, who stood silently beside him, arms crossed over his metallic blue chest. "You say the Kralax don't even know they're serving another power, that they think they're the apex of the galaxy." Valen nodded. "They are a perfect weapon. Ruthless, obedient, efficient, but they lack vision. They do not question why they do what they do." Cole's mind raced. "Then we hit them where they don't expect it." We don't just fight back. We turn their own weapons against them. Valen tilted his head. A bold strategy. But do you have the means? Cole exhaled. We're about to find out. In the dead of night, a team of human operatives moved through the ruins of what had once been a major Kralax command station in Colorado. The facility had been hit by one of humanity's first successful counterattacks, a combination of EMP strikes and old-fashioned sabotage that had left it crippled. But deep inside, beneath layers of wreckage and shattered machinery, was what Cole was after. The War Core, a Kralax command nexus. If they could hijack it, they could gain access to the Kralax battle network, maybe even take control of some of their machines. Rains, the leader of the strike team, pressed a hand to his earpiece. We're in. Moving to the core chamber now. The team navigated through the wreckage, stepping over the remains of destroyed Kralax drones. The deeper they went, the colder it became. The station still hummed with residual energy, faint pulses of red light flickering along the walls. Then they saw it. The War Core was a massive, pulsing construct, its dark metallic frame covered in shifting alien symbols. It was still active, barely, but it was enough. Valen's voice crackled through the comms. I will guide you through the interface. But be warned, if the Kralax detect the intrusion, they will respond. Rains nodded. Then let's be quick. They got to work. A hacker plugged in a modified uplink, attempting to break through the core's defenses. Streams of alien code scrolled across the screen. Valen worked alongside them, his glowing fingers dancing over the interface, manipulating data with a speed no human could match. Then the alarms started blaring. They've detected us. The walls of the chamber hissed open, and Kralax security drones swarmed in. Energy weapons ignited, the air crackling with heat. Rains and his squad fired back, bullets and explosives tearing through metal bodies. But more kept coming. Almost there, Valen said, his voice eerily calm. Hold them off. Rains gritted his teeth. That's easier said than. The War Core pulsed. A shockwave rippled through the facility, and every Kralax machine in the room froze. Then, as if controlled by invisible strings, they turned and opened fire on their own. The team watched in stunned silence as the Kralax drones tore into each other, blue sparks flying as metal limbs were ripped apart. Valen stepped back from the core, his eyes glowing brighter. We have control, but not for long. Rains pressed his earpiece. Command, we did it. We hijacked their systems. Cole's voice came through, firm and steady. Then we launched the next phase. Bring those machines back home. We're taking this war to space. Hours later, across the planet, Kralax forces were met with a terrifying sight. Their own war machines, their own drones, had turned against them. In the jungles of South America, stolen Kralax walkers stomped through enemy outposts, reducing them to rubble. In the mountains of Europe, Kralax drones in human-controlled formations executed precision strikes on key Kralax command centers. For the first time in the war, the Kralax were caught off guard. But it wasn't enough. As the resistance celebrated its victories, a transmission came through from orbit. Kane ran into the command center, eyes wide with shock. Sir, you need to see this. The holographic screen flickered, and an image appeared. The Kralax High Emperor. It was the first time humanity had seen the ruler of the enemy empire. A towering figure clad in dark, organic armor, with a face that barely resembled anything living. Its glowing violet eyes stared directly at them. A voice, cold and emotionless, filled the room. You have proven yourselves more troublesome than expected, but the time for games is over. The true army arrives now. Cole felt the weight of the words settle over him like a death sentence. The real war was about to begin. The sky burned. Across the planet, the atmosphere shimmered with fire as new ships descended, massive, angular vessels, unlike anything the Kralax had used before. These were not part of the usual invasion force. They were something else, Something worse. General Ethan Cole stood in the underground command center, his fists clenched as he watched the holographic projections. Earth's resistance had barely started winning battles, and now something new had entered the war. Something beyond the Kralax. Lieutenant Sarah Kane's voice was tight with urgency. "Sir, these ships, they don't match any known Kralax design. They're bigger, stronger, and they're not just landing. They're facing in." Cole frowned. Facing. Valen, standing in the shadows, stepped forward. His silver-blue skin shimmered under the dim lights. "It means they are not just arriving. They are emerging from higher dimensions, slipping into your space like predators entering a hunting ground." A chilling silence fell over the room. Cole exhaled. "So this is them, the ones who control the Kralax." Valen nodded. "The true masters of this war. The ones I warned you about." On the holographic display, the massive alien ships moved into position, their dark hulls covered in strange, shifting patterns. Energy pulses rippled along their surfaces like living veins. Then, without warning, beams of blue-white light erupted from the vessels, striking Kralax warships in orbit. The entire command center gasped. "They're firing on the Kralax," Kane whispered. Cole's mind raced. Why the hell would they attack their own forces? Valen's glowing eyes narrowed. Because the Kralax failed them. Across the planet, Kralax forces fell into disarray. The machines, once so relentless and precise, hesitated. Some shut down. Others turned and fled. It was chaos. The High Emperor of the Kralax had underestimated humanity, and now their masters had come to correct the failure. Cole wasn't about to let them. "Get me every resistance leader on comms," he barked. "We need to move before these things establish control." A comms officer patched through the connections. Faces flickered onto the screens, rebel commanders from every continent. Some in underground bunkers, others in ruined skyscrapers, all wearing the same expression. Exhaustion, determination, and fear. Cole's voice was firm. "We have a new problem. Those ships aren't reinforcements for the Kralax. They're here to wipe the slate clean." A woman from a European front, Commander Dreyfus, leaned forward. "So, what do we do? Fight them too?" Valen spoke before Cole could answer. "No, you cannot win a direct fight. Not against these ones." Cole turned to him. "Then what's the play?" Valen's glowing gaze bore into him. "You do what no other species has ever done. You make them fear you." It started with Earth's skies. As the unknown ships descended, something unexpected happened. Human forces, using their stolen Kralax war machines, turned their weapons not on the new invaders, but on the Kralax themselves. Across the planet, resistance fighters launched a full-scale assault on the remaining Kralax strongholds, using the enemy's own technology against them. The Kralax, caught between their failing empire and their furious human prey, collapsed in mere hours. And then, as if answering a silent challenge, the true enemy spoke. A transmission sent across every channel, every screen, every device still functioning. A voice, layered and distorted, ancient and unknowable. "You are nothing." In the ruins of New York, a Kralax war factory imploded under human bombardment. "You do not belong." In the mountains of Asia, resistance fighters hijacked another war corps, turning thousands of Kralax machines against their creators. "You should not exist." In the deserts of Africa, the last Kralax command outpost burned. And then, silence. For the first time in history, the Kralax Empire had been defeated, completely, utterly, and undeniably, by a species that was never meant to win. Cole stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays, his heart pounding. "We made them blink," he murmured. "We made them doubt." Valen's expression was unreadable. "Now you must make them fear." Cole turned back to his people, his voice steady. "We're not done." Because the war was no longer about survival. Now, it was about revenge. The sky over Earth was no longer just a battlefield. It was a statement. The Kralax were gone, their empire shattered by the very species they had underestimated. And now, the ones who had controlled them, the unseen masters who had shaped the war from the shadows, stood at the edge of the conflict, watching. General Ethan Cole stood in the underground command center, staring at the colossal alien vessels in orbit. The true enemy had not yet fired again. They had not moved to land. They were waiting. Cole could feel it, like the tension before a storm. "They're deciding," Valen said, his voice unreadable. "They do not act on instinct like the Kralax. They analyze, predict, calculate." He turned his glowing gaze toward Cole. "They do not understand what just happened. No species has ever done what humanity just did." Cole exhaled. "They didn't think we'd fight this hard. They didn't think you could win at all." Around them, the resistance forces worked tirelessly. The underground bunkers, once desperate hideouts, were now fully functioning war rooms. Every remaining Kralax war machine that had been hijacked was being studied, repurposed. The stolen war cores pulsed with alien energy, giving humanity control over the very weapons that had once been used to exterminate them. But it wasn't enough. They had made the enemy hesitate. That was a victory. But hesitation was not the same as retreat. And then, the enemy made their move. Across the planet, every stolen Kralax machine, every war core, every system humans had taken, shut down. Not violently, not through destruction, but as if someone had simply reached into reality and turned them off. The screens flickered, the lights dimmed, even the air seemed to grow heavier. And then the voice returned. "We see you." Cole's jaw clenched. Around him, his officers watched the screen, unmoving, as the message pulsed across every display. "We acknowledge your defiance." Valen's expression remained unreadable, but his fingers twitched at his side. Cole had learned to recognize that as a sign of deep unease. "We offer you one chance." The tactical display shifted. A single point on the map glowed. "Somewhere in the Arctic. Come." Then, just like that, the message ended. The stolen Kralax technology remained lifeless. The alien ships in orbit did not fire. The war had entered a new phase. Cole stood on the edge of the frozen wasteland, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. The Arctic wind howled around him, but his focus was on the structure ahead. It hadn't been there before. A massive geometric construct of shifting black stone and glowing veins of energy stood in the ice, as if it had always existed but had simply chosen to reveal itself now. The enemy had invited them. Cole turned to his team, Kane, Valen, and a squad of hand-picked operatives. All were armed, but they knew weapons might be useless here. "This is a trap," Kane muttered. "Obviously," Cole said. "But it's a trap we need to walk into." Valen studied the structure. "They have never done this before. A species is either eradicated or assimilated. No one is invited." "Then let's make history again," Cole said. They stepped inside. The interior was vast, too vast. The moment they entered, the laws of space felt different. The corridors stretched impossibly long, then suddenly short. The walls pulsed with shifting symbols, unreadable yet eerily familiar. Then the presence made itself known. It wasn't a figure. It wasn't even a voice. It was understanding forced into their minds. A feeling of vastness, of something so ancient and so powerful that it did not speak in words, but in inevitabilities. A single truth settled over them. This was not just a species. This was a force. The masters of the Kralax did not conquer. They decided. They shaped the fates of civilizations as easily as humans shaped clay. And now they had turned their gaze fully on humanity. Cole forced himself to stand tall. "You called us here," he said aloud, his voice steady. "So talk." The presence considered. Then, for the first time, it spoke in something resembling words. "You were never meant to survive." The walls pulsed. The symbols shifted, forming brief images, other civilizations, other wars, and then extinction, again and again. Species that had fought, species that had surrendered. The result was always the same. Cole gritted his teeth, and yet here we are. A pause, a long, heavy silence that felt like the weight of 1,000 dead worlds pressing against him. Yes. Then something new. A ripple in the overwhelming presence. Not anger, not amusement, something else. Curiosity. Cole felt his heart pound. This was their chance. You expected us to lose, he said. And now you don't know what to do with us. The presence did not deny it. You can still wipe us out, Cole admitted. But you haven't. Because for the first time, you're hesitating. Another pause. Then, the words came, not as a threat, but as a challenge. Convince us. Cole glanced at Valen, who remained perfectly still. The alien's glowing eyes met his. This was it. The one chance. Cole took a slow breath. And then, with everything he had, he began to speak. Cole had faced death before. He had stared down Kralak's war machines, watched cities burn, and felt the weight of an entire planet's survival rest on his shoulders. But nothing had ever felt like this. He wasn't just talking to an enemy. He was speaking to something beyond war, beyond strategy. The entity before him, before all of humanity, wasn't a conqueror in the way they understood. It was a force that shaped civilizations, that decided whether a species was worthy of continuing or if they were a mistake to be erased. And now, for the first time in untold ages, it was asking to be convinced. Cole took a breath. You've judged species before, decided which ones live, which ones don't. I get that. He kept his voice steady, his stance firm. You see civilizations as patterns, data. A species either fits what you want, or they don't. The presence did not deny it. Valen watched in silence, his glowing eyes unreadable. Kane gripped her weapon tightly, though she knew it was useless here. The rest of the squad stood like statues, waiting for Cole to do the impossible. You made a mistake with humanity, Cole continued. You thought we'd be like the others, that we'd break, or bow, or burn away. But we didn't. His voice hardened. You don't understand us. And that's why you're hesitating. A ripple in the air. The walls of the structure shifted, symbols twisting, reshaping. Brief flashes of history flickered across them. Ancient empires, fallen worlds, the long march of species erased from existence. And then, humanity, the battles, the defiance, the impossible victories. Cole took a step forward. You don't destroy things you don't understand, do you? You study them. He narrowed his eyes. You want to know why we won. The presence responded, not in words, but in an overwhelming wave of thought. You were not supposed to. Cole let out a short breath. Maybe not, but we did. And if you destroy us now, you lose the chance to find out why. The presence shifted. It wasn't emotion. It was calculation. Valen spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, but edged with something strange. They do not see you as a threat, General. Not in the way you see enemies. His glowing gaze met Cole's. They see you as a variable. An anomaly in a system that has run unchanged for longer than your species has existed. Cole's heart pounded. Then study us. Watch us. But don't try to control us. The silence was heavier than anything he had ever felt. Then the structure around them shifted. The alien walls seemed to dissolve, fading into the ice and wind as if they had never been there at all. And then the sky changed. The massive alien vessels, the ones that had hovered in silent judgment over Earth, began to move. They turned, their strange, shifting surfaces pulsing with unreadable energy. And then, one by one, they vanished. Not through traditional spaceflight, not like the Kralak ships. They simply ceased to be. Kane took a sharp breath. Did we just win? Cole wasn't sure. He turned to Valen. The alien was staring at the sky, his expression unreadable. "They are not gone," Valen murmured. "They are watching." Cole exhaled. That was fine. Let them watch. Because humanity had done what no other species ever had. They had stood before a force that had erased entire civilizations and refused to be judged. And for now, that had been enough. The war was over, but the future was something new, something uncertain. And for the first time in history, that uncertainty didn't belong to humanity. It belonged to the ones who had always thought themselves beyond it.